building, and just to provide a reminder to people about how to use the system and a couple of the ground rules there. I will call the meeting to order and recognize that we have posted the agenda in accordance with the open door law and posted notice as required there. With that, Courtney, would you please go through the information that you have for us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So for today's meeting, just wanted to give a few technical components of the meeting using WebEx. DUAB members or any of the panelists will be able to control their sound as well as their video. For attendees, all attendees are on mute. So you will automatically be on mute. If you do encounter any issues during the meeting, I would ask that you use the chat option to send a message to me. And this last item here, the meeting is being recorded. That is my hope. I'm actually recording it right now on my iPhone. I'm having some difficulties recording it on WebEx, but I'm hoping I'll find a way to get this posted after this meeting. So the one other thing for attendees to be aware of is on your side, it will show that you are the only attendee. Please don't think that you are. We have several people on the line right now, but that is just kind of the way WebEx is currently set up. So with that, I'll move over to the agenda. Oh, you're muted, Justin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate everyone's patience as we adapt, all of us, including me, to the virtual nature of our meetings here at this unusual time we find ourselves. Thank you for being with us this morning, and our apologies that we are not able to meet in person. Hopefully we will be able to resume in-person meetings in the near future, and if and when we do that, we will certainly let you all know so that everyone has the opportunity to participate that way. Today, we have just one item of business for consideration. Our consideration of the Emergency Management Services contract for Gary Community School Corporation. You'll recall that we've had a few meetings on this topic already, and what we are here to do today is really to decide the future of that engagement and how to engage the emergency management services going forward. You recall that the Gary NGT or GSR, the Gary Schools Recovery, their contract expires here at the end of July. And so we do need to identify who will take the helm of the engagement here before too long. You'll recall that on March 12th, I did invite MGT to make a presentation to the board regarding their interest and their plan if they were to be selected for continuing in their role as emergency manager and their vision for how to continue this engagement to bring us to a successful conclusion of returning the school corporation to community control. We did hold a virtual town hall meeting on May 14th. Appreciate everyone who participated. We had a high number of community members join us at that meeting and provide feedback to us. We do appreciate that. We had the opportunity also to hear from MGT directly, where they presented their vision for the future. For those of you who are not members of the board, and as I said at that May 14th meeting, we the board members did hold an executive session where we interviewed MGT on May 21st. And that was almost a 3-hour long meeting that we had with them, where board members and others were able to ask a number of questions and had a really robust conversation around a lot of the things that we heard at that community forum. We were able to drill in on a number of questions and a number of topics and receive a better understanding of how MGT views those particular items, how they would expect to respond to those items, and to also help set some expectations for what we as a board would like to see as we go forward and understand how MGT felt they might be able to meet those expectations. We have continued to receive community feedback, both through email and telephone communication. A number of our board members have been receiving those since that May 14th meeting. Appreciate the continued engagement from each of you there in the community, and that input is important to us. It is helpful to see that and hear from each of you to understand how you view this engagement and to highlight the various pieces that you think we need to be focused on as we are making this decision. So thank you all for that. You know, as I said at that May 14th meeting, I think there are some important factors we need to consider as we make this decision, particularly at this particular time. You know, we're at a time where with COVID-19 and the school closures and other disruptions to societal life, that there is a lot of uncertainty around the continued operation of schools and what that will look like into the next year. We don't yet know exactly the contours of what the school year will look like, and we certainly don't know if we will yet encounter another resurgence of the virus that will require us to take additional measures as we've done at the end of last year. And so there's just a lot of unknowns at this period of time. I think the other things that we need to keep in mind is that the importance of continuity and stability to this project as a whole. I think that's separate and apart from the continuity and the stability that the current pandemic requires of us. But I think beyond that, there's always ground lost when you change directions and when you change leaders in the midst of an engagement like this, and you will inevitably take steps back when you do that. And so I think you have to consider that very carefully as you make those decisions and weigh the costs and benefits of those types of changes. I think the other thing, obviously, that we need to keep in mind is we've heard from a number of community members and stakeholders, and I think we heard a wide range of opinions at our public forum on May 14th. We heard a number of positive comments. We heard a number of concerns and things that I think we need to take into account as we move forward in this engagement, and things that perhaps we need to look to approach in a different way than we've approached it thus far. I think the other important thing to keep in mind is that what initiated this engagement was the state of the financial situation in Gary Community Schools. We were in a position in 2017 where the district was $22 million in the red year over year. The budget was out of balance to the tune of $22 million. And so we've reached a point now where the budget is now only $6 million out of balance. That's tremendous progress, I believe, in 3 years. We're not all the way there, though. There's still ground to tread, and there's still work to be done. But I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we need to keep that in mind as we make this decision as well, because MGT has been very successful at righting the ship in that way and putting us on a course that will set the foundation for future success. And I think lastly, the other thing that we need to keep in mind are the future needs of the district. Where do we expect this district to be? What do we expect that they will need? And how best can we meet those challenges in light of these various considerations that we have? And so as I've had the opportunity to reflect on all of these things, to take in the public comment and to have a number of conversations with members from the community as well as other stakeholders and members here of the board, for me, I have landed at a place where it seems appropriate to me that we should continue to engage MGT or GSR at this time. I do think that for the reasons I highlighted before, the stability, the uncertainty of COVID, as well as the tremendous success we've had on the financial front, that it would be prudent for us to continue where we are. I believe that they have a team who is capable of tackling the challenges that are ahead of us. And I believe that Dr. McNulty and Eric Parrish are well positioned and incredibly familiar with the challenges facing the district and the needs that we will have here in the next couple of years. In my mind, I know that GSR asked us for a 3-year contract. I'm not sure that that is the appropriate length of a contract at this point. I think that we heard a number of concerns that warrant serious consideration and attention as we go forward. In particular, we heard a lot of concerns around academic performance, and while those concerns I believe are very important, I also think we need to keep in mind that academic performance is a lot harder to move, I think, than we will see on the financial side of the equation. It's not just dollars and cents. It's people and communities and cultures, and those are going to take longer to change. But we are coming up on a point where in the next few years, I think we should start to see some of those changes. And so with that in mind, I think we need to be sensitive to that. And so my recommendation would be that we engage MGT or GSR for an additional 2 years with the option to reevaluate that engagement at that time or sooner if we so choose, based on the feedback that we get and the performance that we see. And I believe that solves a couple problems for us. I think number one, I think that ensures the stability and continuity that I think each of us have expressed as being critical to this endeavor. But I also think it gives enough time for MGT to continue the progress that it has made and a meaningful amount of time for it to begin to show some of the results that I believe that they will be able to show and the progress that they will be able to show on the academic front as they have shown us on the financial front and operational front as well. So with that, I'll stop talking and turn it to other board members to offer their perspectives. But I wanted to lead off there with my thoughts on the engagement and how we ought to proceed. Is there anyone who would like to offer comments at this time?
Paul's raising his hand.
Mr. Joyce, I see your hand there, please.
I was trying to find the little button on there that says raise your hand, but I couldn't find it. Sorry about that. I would like to say that, as Justin pointed out, we're under extraordinary times right now. And we all did read. I know that I did, and I know different people did because I talked to them about the communications that came from the community, had a few phone calls, and had some good discussion with the community about not only MGT, but the process as a whole. And, that included, a large discussion about the need or the desire to have a superintendent. And I want to make sure that doesn't go unheard. And I know that as we move forward, that will be brought in, because the ultimate goal of this committee, as it was in the beginning, it has not changed, and that's to give the school corporation back to Gary Community Schools. But it's also to give the school corporation back to the Gary community in a way that it can succeed. And failure would, to give it back, and with believing that failure would occur, would be a very poor decision on our part. And so we want to try to establish a plan moving forward that would allow success. And, Justin did point out, and it's extremely important, that MGT has been there for a while, and they have laid groundwork moving forward. And it was a long time ago, but somebody very, very intelligent, much more intelligent than I, told me it takes 7 years to change. And it's not my intent that MGT is going to be there 7 years, but I think you need to get that institutionalized change in process moving forward, and then allow the Gary community to move it out and into the open and bringing that forward. And I believe that that probably will be through the academic side as much, not as much as the financial, because I think that MGT is doing a pretty good job at bringing the financial aspect of it back into line. But that, as the community pointed out, and rightfully so, it is a joint, not only financial, but also the academic side that will help move it forward. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Micah said when we first started this in the very first meeting that we had, when he was the chair of the board, that the success of Gary Community Schools is within Gary's community's own hands by increasing their ADM, by bringing the children back from the charter schools to go to the Gary Community Schools. And that is a community engagement, and that's what I think we have to look forward in this next 2 years, is to really engaging the community, and moving them forward. So I would also have to agree with Justin that the pandemic that we're going through right now, I've seen numerous articles that the full recovery for most businesses and including government won't be until 2023, 2024. And that being said, I don't think it's in the best interest of the Gary Community Schools to do anything less than a 2-year contract at this point in time. But I also believe that a 3-year is probably too long. And so 2 is the good, what I feel would be the good median in there that's going to give them an opportunity to show they can help work on the academic side. And we should be in a good position. And hopefully within that 2 years, we can also work on the superintendent issue with the schools, so we do have a good plan to turn that school back over to Gary Community Schools, which I know is the best interest for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Other board members? Do other board members have comments or other observations?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Ben.
Thank you. I don't have really too much more to add than what you and Paul said. Again, I think the 2 years is the sweet spot. I still am focused on the academics. MGT has promised to increase and to improve the academics. So I'll be looking for the terms to include incentives that will reflect that. And so I'm concerned about Roosevelt. So we need to complete our jobs. I'm not an attorney, as everyone knows, but I don't even think we could turn it back if we wanted to today because of the statutes, the laws that say there have to be certain parameters met before it's turned over. But as I have had similar conversations that Paul has had with local parents, community leaders, and I've said it many times that I'm not in the business to run Gary Community Schools, and I don't think any of us are long term. So the sooner the better, but at the appropriate time and in a manner that is consistent with what, as Paul said, where they're both fiscally and academically ready to do so, and I hope that is much sooner than later. So I would certainly support any motion that would extend the contract for MGT to 2 years, and with the expectation that not only will they continue to improve the financial fiscal situation of the school system, but drastically improve the academics as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to concur with your words and Mr. Joyce and Mr. Benner. I thought you were all exactly on track and moving in the right direction in the best interest of the children of the Community School Corporation. And what you have said and presented and your thought process, I fully concur with, and thank you again for your leadership and work on this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there
Representative Smith, I'd like.
Yes, Representative Smith, please.
Yeah, first of all, I want to apologize to my constituents and to the board. For some reason, I had it down at 9:30. I thought, on that early. I apologize for the breakdown in communication. I want to support your contract as well. Initially, I was thinking 1 year with form of standard on the attitude side as well as that's something we get. Not so much get. This is the operation of that is the second. But I'm more than amenable to this contract. Let me just indicate that I'm stressed for I am concerned about slipping and encouraging
Representative Smith, I just want to let you know I'm having trouble. You're breaking up a little bit as you speak.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong. When I do this at home, you can't hear me. Everybody else I do Zoom. I Zoom with my students every day. I got 2 Zoom meetings after this one, and they can hear me. But every time I try to do it on WebEx, it doesn't work. Okay. So,
sorry, I can't hear you now, though, clearly.
I've moved closer to the.
All right.
Yeah, I'm probably getting my head probably looks like a walnut line for close to the camera. But let me just indicate I have very serious concerns about the academic side. I'm not sure that they're competent to deal with academic needs. And if they're going to be given the position of managing the district in the next few years, they've got to listen more to what the community is saying, what the people are saying, how our children learn. I don't think they're taking that consideration. I think that they've got to make better choices in the education leadership that they're providing for the district. And then I'm concerned about the fact that they are adding more security in all of our buildings. And then they're increasing the education leadership positions, more of those positions in the building. They're taking that out of Title I. Are you going to continue to allow us to do that once we take back over our school corporation? Otherwise, we're going to be right back in the same shortages that we have been in for a number of years. So that is my concern. And then one other concern that I have, and I want to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. George, about recruitment of students. That's going to be our answer. And I have said over and over again, I have not had a one-on-one with Dr. McNulty, but I've said it multiple times that we've got to personalize the recruitment program. Putting up billboards is fine, putting out yard signs is fine, but we've got to personalize the recruitment of our students. And I've shared that plan with you multiple times in order. One of the things that I think is starting earlier this year on recruitment. But the bottom line, recruitment ought to be going on all during the year, and it has to be personalized. I won't get into the details of that, but I am once again going to share them. We have got to use a different means of recruitment than the typical ones I'm talking about on the radio. So much information to give on the radio announcing just 1 minute. Not billboards, not yard signs. Those are important. But when we really start talking about recruiting, it's one-on-one. We've got enough faculty and staff to personalize our recruitment process to do something. So I'm saying that I do believe that that's our answer, getting out of debt, getting out of operating in the red. But it doesn't seem to be gaining any momentum with MDT. So I support the 2-year contract. Mr. Chairman, I think that's scary to individuals, but my concern is for the contract that's also been talked about and some requirements. And so at this point, I would support whatever the board does. Of course, everybody knows don't have a contract.
Representative Smith, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support of what I've recommended. I think I know you and I have had a lot of discussions about this, and certainly one thing that I think we need to do as we head forward in this engagement. I think there's a couple things we need to do. I think one, we need to build on our community engagement, both as a board and I think as we need MGT to build on that as well. I think it is clear that we are not reaching people perhaps as much as we could be. And so I think we have to continue to work to get better at that and improve that communication. And I think part of that has to be making ourselves available to the community to share concerns with us directly and share concerns with MGT directly and get answers as well. I think the other part of this as we go forward too I think we really, one thing that Courtney and I have spent a lot of time talking with all of you about and with a number of people about is really building out our the data that we see as a board and getting a more regular update on various points of data and metrics of the performance of the school corporation across a number of fronts. I think we spend a lot of time looking at the financial side in our board meetings because a lot of the business that we have is related to the financial pieces of action. But we also need to build out the data and our regular opportunities to discuss the academic goings on of the school corporation. I think we need to spend time getting a more complete picture of that performance as well, and as well as the operational side, which we see some of as well. And I think we need to work towards a regular system of updates where we have time set aside to be able to look at those, have a conversation with the leaders of Gary Community Schools and understand that information better so that we are able to provide real-time feedback frequently and effectively.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing. Will we provide a copy of the actual contract?
So at this point, there is not an actual contract to vote on. How we have approached this in the past is to vote at this meeting to make a decision about whether to re-engage or who to engage with. And then typically what we have done is delegate the actual negotiation of the contract, the details of the contract to the chairman and the executive director to engage in sort of those detailed negotiations on the various provisions, and then bring that contract back for approval at a subsequent meeting for the full board with time to review and provide input on that contract.
Well, I would just, for the public record, if I may, add some things I like to see in that contract.
Yes.
Just in a private manner with our executive board, but I think that we ought to be on public record. And one of those things is transparency. Is being really concerned about MGT not allowing people to ask questions or their reluctance or their avoidance of any opportunity to answer those questions when they are allowed. That is a major concern that's being had. And I don't know if it's worthy of being in the contract. I think that this means we have any level of assurance that needs to be found.
Yeah, I've made a note of that, and I know we've had some discussions around that before. I think that's something we can and will incorporate into our contract with MGT.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I was going to read the statement prepared by the Department of Ed at the time of the vote, but I think it might be more appropriate to go ahead and make the statement now, just for the record. The Indiana Department of Education will only support a one-year contract extension, considering MGT has already benefited from a 3-year contract. An additional 1-year extension would allow them to prove their ability to address both the physical and academic improvement that the Gary Community School children deserve. This would also provide the state of Indiana time to reevaluate the situation at the conclusion of that 1 year extension.
Thank you, Tracy. Mr. Bennett, I believe you were also going to speak next time.
Well, if the discussion was done, I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I was prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, when the appropriate time came.
Thank you. Are there do any of the other board members, or does anyone have additional comments or observations they would like to add?
May I ask the question of Tracy since you made that comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Tracy, the basis of your concern is that they've had a 3-year period in which perform, and we think only 1 year extension is necessary. What are your concern areas that that cause you to want to? Is it academic, and how has been working to trying to increase that performance?
I didn't hear all of your question. I think I heard most of it. Just want to say, first of all, that I represent Dr. McCormick on this board, and her concern overall, of course, the financial is important, but the role of the Indiana Department of Education is so strongly focused on academics. And MGT has had 3 years. We'd like to see what they do in the upcoming year before granting them an additional year or two beyond that. That's simply her position.
Okay, so
We would like to see more improvement in the academic area.
okay. Mr. Chairman, based on DOE, and I have great respect for Dr. McCormick, based on your comment, is there any way in this contract that we could have some benchmarks where automatically would improve, would take the contract into the second year? And it would have to be formative because we're not going to have a situation where we're going to have a summative test. Probably, well, I guess you won't have one in a year. We'll be testing next spring. I don't know if you get the results back. Tracy, can you tell us when you will get the results back from the testing next spring?
I can't answer that right now. There's still conversations going on about what the assessments will look like in the upcoming year.
Okay, so what would you, when you are suggesting a 1 year contract, what would you use as a barometer to determine whether NBC is considered a distance? You're recommending 1 year. What would you use as a guideline, as a barometer to determine if it's a distance?
I would have to have a conversation with our team at the accountability and assessment teams at the department in order to answer that fully. I just can't do so right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, Representative Smith, Courtney and I had explored this question of when data might be available and what kind of data would be available. As you may know, typically the results of the summative assessments are not available until either in this, they're available sometimes in the summer, but maybe not fall of the following year. And so from a timing perspective, we would, the 1 year time frame, I don't know that data would be available to us if it followed the normal course of events. Obviously, we're in an unusual time, and so hard to predict what it may look like. Other comments or observations or thoughts that board members would like to share? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we extend the contract with Gary Schools Recovery LLC a subsidiary of MGT Consulting Group for emergency manager services for Gary Community School Corporation for 2 years, and also authorize the chairman to negotiate the contract terms and bring the contract back to DUAB for final approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, we're aware of the fact that MDT has asked for increases in the payments that we receive for the service. Are you going to discuss that with them? Because I'm not sure everybody's in agreement with them getting raised and they have not performed.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Smith, for that question. I forgot to bring that up in our earlier discussion. So, as you'll recall, in the proposal we've seen from MGT, they've initially proposed an increase in the cost. I think our view, or my view at least, of this at the moment is that an increase at this point would not be appropriate, given that we are in a position both of financial uncertainty from the economy, from state revenue, and of course all agencies are being asked to tighten their belts and really evaluate their spending very, very heavily. I think also as we move forward in this engagement, we've seen MGT be able to perform at a high level with the resources that they have, and I believe they can continue to do that. We've had some preliminary conversations with them around this topic just to understand whether that is something that they would be acceptable to them, and we've received some initial indications that they are amenable to that with the 2-year contract. So I believe that as I negotiate the contract, if the motion carries, we work towards what I've said there, which is to hold the compensation at the level that it is currently.
Well, one additional point relative to the payment or how much they're going to be charging for their services. In the initial contract, the 3-year contract, we had in it some benchmarks, and if they did certain tasks, then they would get money. They got, which infuriated this community, they got several bonuses that for just designing a plan, but not implementing. Initially, they were assigned to come up with what they were going to accomplish during the 3 years. When they gave their evaluation and made the presentation for the renewal of the contract, they didn't use any of those indicators and show the progress that they've made. They just simply gave us a global picture of where the district is and what they've been able to achieve. Go back to that plan that they got the last $250,000 for. I would assert to you that they made very little progress on that. So in this contract, I don't believe that you ought to give them money for creating a plan. You need to pay them. You're going to pay them for executing and delivering the goals that are associated with whatever initiative it is. That's what normally occurs, rather than you just come up with a plan and you get paid. No, you get paid if you deliver. You make a difference. If there are changes, positive change. And so this community wants to see that and not payment for paper checks.
Your point is well taken, and I think early in the engagement when we first began in 2017, there was a lot of uncertainty around the what was needed, what can be done, where should we go, and I think maybe those types of incentives made more sense at that period of time than they do where we are now. Now that we have a a much better picture of the situation, of what needs to be done and where we need to go. And so we'll certainly keep that in mind and take that into account as we are crafting that next contract. And I will say we do intend to have to follow the pattern that we have followed up to this point, which is to have that compensation split both across a sort of a base payment structure with an incentive structure on top of that, where there are particular payments tied to meeting various deliverables.
What do you foresee as the timeline for once you get a contract negotiated that it will be available to the board members before we have to vote? You have to vote, rather, not me.
Yeah. Well, but your feedback is very important to us, and so I don't think of you differently than a voting member. So what I would say is we are beginning those conversations, and we'll begin those conversations soon. Yet this week, I believe we'll be able to begin those conversations, and we'll work towards that. My goal would be to provide that contract at least a week in advance to members so that they can take a look at that. And we certainly have the option, if there are things that we identify that I think are of particular interest to board members, that we can certainly have those conversations along the way, and I'll commit to do that if I think there's something that touches on issues that I know are of importance. In general, my expectation would be that we have the framework of a contract so far that has served us pretty well for the first 3 years in terms of a lot of the sort of what I'll call the meat and potatoes of the contract, and I would expect that much of that stays in the form that it is today. And so I think a lot of what we'll be spending our time around is sorting out those exact incentives and base pay and how those are structured, as well as some additional refinement and improvement of the scope of work to speak to some of these other issues around data and community engagement that we need to address.
With your week timeline, if we found some concern, would you go back and renegotiate? Would you push the meeting that's scheduled a week thereafter? Would you push that back? Or what would happen if you have concern?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate, but I'm committed to listen to the feedback and be responsive as we go through that process. So again, we'll work to provide that as soon as we can, and so that we can iron out any details early in the process before we need to vote on that contract.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Courtney, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Paul Joyce?
Yeah, yes.
Wes Bennett?
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki?
Yes.
Tracy Brown?
No.
And Justin McAdam?
Yes.
4-1.
Right. The motion carries 4-1. We will begin Courtney and I, as I said, will work to engage MGT and its team here this week and begin to have those conversations and work quickly as we can. And we will bring that contract back at a future meeting. That is our only formal item of business for today. I do have one additional item of new business that I'd like to bring to the board. I believe that based on the feedback we've received and a number of conversations that I've had with community members and stakeholders in the Gary community and related to this engagement, that we as a board ought to consider allowing public comment at our board meetings on a regular basis. I think we've heard that from a number of individuals. I think we had a very constructive meeting in May with public comment, and I think it's helpful to guide our decision making and guide our thought processes as we do this. And so what I'd like to propose is that we charge Courtney as the executive director with coming up with and developing a policy that we could adopt as a board to explain how we would handle public comment. I expect that we could look to some other boards like the Board of Education and others who already allow this practice to make sure that we are consistent with how others have done it, and certainly learn from the lessons that they have learned. Anyone have any concern with that request?
Now, just not a concern, but I want to support it because, in essence, the DUAB board has become my speaker, and we don't have a speaker board that advises that has difficulty getting its questions and answers, and sometimes not being allowed to ask questions by the board, our school board. So, when people have a sense of hopelessness and helplessness, their behavior is negative. They're not going to be engaged, not going to be supported. They feel like they have input. And that, if you look at the outcomes for education leadership, it talks about constant input into these things. And you're part now centralized administration. And so the elements that have been identified as being important for engagement and for improvement of schools and school districts require citizen input and all stakeholders input and involvement. And so what you're saying is music to my ears. And I know it'll be a great point of celebration for my community if you're willing to consider.
Thank you, Representative Smith. I appreciate your support.
Mr. Chairman, I support that initiative as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, we will bring that back at a future meeting. I want to, we have a lot going on at the moment. I do want to give Courtney some time to develop that policy and certainly have the opportunity to have some conversations with others regarding that. And so we will bring that back at a future meeting, maybe not our next meeting, but soon, and for us to consider as a board. Is there any other new business to come before the board today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two items that have come from the community.
Yes.
One, the community wants to know what is the plan to get the road dust to become part of their community school corporation. I don't expect to get a report on that today, but it's too important to really explore that with them. I would be interested in knowing what they're going to do, because I think if they wait too long, they're going to lose that cadre of about 200 plus students. And the other thing deals with WGB, the local radio station operated by the Gary Community Corporation. It is my understanding that the reapplication is due for that license. WGB plays a significant part of the communication framework for this community. All of the local, not all, but a great number of local churches broadcast on WGB source of money for the radio station. But in addition to it, it provides entertainment, news-based knowledge. The school board needs to be broadcasting, so it helps the community inform. And it's my understanding that Dr. McNulty has not moved on this, and we need to move better because the application is overdue, and we don't want the federal government to snatch that license.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. We not familiar with that particular issue, but we will certainly look into it and bring information back. Wes, did I see your hand?
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, I more directed to Tracy. I certainly would encourage and ask for the help of Dr. McCormick and the Board of Education on helping us with some academic guidelines or academic parameters, benchmarks. Maybe is the better word. I think that's what I heard, is that maybe they can help us with that, and because I know it's the concern of this board, and that the academics improve. So it would be helpful if the Department of Education could help us with what kind of guidelines and benchmarks we should be looking at.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And that will be part of the process, I think, as Courtney and I look to develop those in conjunction with this board and the school. All right. With that, there's no other business. Courtney does have some additional information to provide, so I do want to provide her an opportunity to do that, and then we will adjourn after that.
Great. Thank you so much. Just wanted to let everybody know that as you log off of this meeting, you will have a web page pop up that is a survey. That survey is for WebEx, not for DUAB. So if you do have comments that you would like to provide to DUAB, I would ask that you please email those directly to us at duab@duab.in.gov. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Board members, members of the community, and others. Appreciate your time and attention to this matter today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.